Welcome to the Andrea Giovino show. We're back at Loretta's Cafe in Bristol, PA, and I thought that it would be great for the viewers to see what really goes on in Cafe Talk. We talk about everything and anything. I want to thank my subscribers for subscribing. Continue to subscribe. I try to bring out really good content, and I want to thank you, Jesus, for giving me this platform and having my guests on. Today we have back again, at your request, people have mentioned they loved Lou Busico, top-notch attorney from Philadelphia. My son Toby's back on, people requested, and today we're going to go for it. Lou, I wanted to ask you, Lou, this. I was reading in the paper and everything here about the case you represented, alleged underboss of the Philadelphia crime family, Steve Mazzone. So my question is, did Steve take the plea? Did you plea him out? Did he want to go to trial? What was he, I know all that stuff affects the family. It's a lot of stress when this goes on.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, first and foremost, for those who know Mr. Mazzone, we'll vouch for him, about to say, and for those that don't, you can trust and believe. First and foremost, he is a family man. I've represented thousands of people over the years, and I would be hard-pressed to find another man who was a more devoted son, who's a more devoted brother, and who's a more devoted father. So when we were confronted with what his options were, the only thought that he had, and it's never about him, it was never about him and what's best for him and his life. His only thought was, what's the best for my mom, who's elderly? What's the best for my two daughters, who I love beyond belief? And sadly, his daughters recently lost their mother. So as a single parent, that's what drove Mr. Mazzone's decision on how to proceed. It was pure selflessness on his part. It was about everybody but him.
Wow.
So why don't you tell us, for those that don't know or are not familiar with his particular background and how he proceeded and what his case was about and how it ended up, so on and so forth.
Well, he was indicted with many others under the RICO statute, which everyone now is ridiculously familiar with.
Right.
It's the government's favorite tool to round up people and bring in evidence of things that you never were charged with and you were never convicted of. And then, of course, in any RICO case, what do you need? Well, you need to sprinkle in several rats or cooperators, if you will, who can make up uncorroborated stories. I saw this guy do this, and I saw this guy do that, and he told me this. And he was indicted with many others for racketeering, primarily gambling. I mean, there was absolutely no accusation against Mr. Mazzone that he was involved in drugs. And anybody who knows Steve will tell you that would never happen in this lifetime or any other. So it was purely a case where he was being accused of running a gambling operation, sports betting, lending money. I mean, candidly, the same playbook the government comes at them with every other year.
Along with drugs.
But not for him. He was not charged with anything to do with drugs.
Toby, I was
Were they trying to pin drugs on him?
Other people in the indictment were charged with drug dealing.
That's what happened to me.
Yes.
When you get charged with a RICO, you're getting charged with everything.
Well, and that happens for a reason, because now, you go to trial, and even though there's no predicate act under the RICO statute that's accusing you of dealing drugs, you're sitting next to a guy who's moving either ecstasy or Percocet pills or heroin, and the spillover effect is really detrimental.
Right.
And the government knows that. It doesn't happen by accident that they're bringing drug charges into a case where you're just sitting there because you lend money on the street, or you're taking sports bets, things like that.
But let me ask you this: what in that case, because I know a lot of cases, were there cooperators?
Of course,
yeah.
From Central Casting. I mean, they pulled down to the Union in Hollywood. Here they come. Yeah.
Now, here's the funny thing. You and I were just talking about a mutual friend, an attorney who used to be a prosecutor.
Yes.
And I actually asked him this question a very long time ago. You lock up 10 guys, not New York, but specifically I asked him this in an area of Bucks County. Let's even use the number of 100. How many are going to cooperate?
Out of 100? In this day and age?
Oh, God.
Come on. And in this day and age, everybody and their mother.
Yeah.
Because it came down to this. Cooperation has become normalized now in our criminal justice system. You know, you take people that if they told you today was Monday, you make them pull out a calendar to verify it. But the minute they say, I saw Toby do X, I saw Andrea do Y, well, of course you're telling the truth. You're under oath. You're the good guys now. Everybody, there's no fear factor anymore as well, because the fear of going to jail forever has trumped going back to your old neighborhood, going back to your family, the embarrassment that it may cause. That's what's happening.
So these young kids today that believe there's some level of loyalty amongst thieves and amongst crime.
I just want to say one thing. We have Lou here that has this cafe, and I love coming here because I love the food.
Thank you.
I love the food. Everything is made so. Well, I know you.
Wait till you eat these sandwiches. Wait till you see when this stuff comes out. Forget about it. If you're Italian, you will fully understand. If you're not, you'll understand times two.
Yeah, you'll be wanting to drive here.
Well, I hope you're hungry. We're going to bring some stuff out.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know, that's, here, everybody's a tough guy till they're not. Everybody wants to be a gangster until shit gets real. And then when it, you know, it comes time to fighting a case, or just pleading out and keeping your mouth shut, now suddenly people are like, well, you know, I think I want to reconsider how I want to proceed.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing in terms of the 90-something% will cooperate. So 100 guys on the street get locked up. There's a few hardcore guys that will probably never.
Right.
But the majority of them are basically going to cooperate against their friends, against their associates.
Let me back that up. In that life, there is no friends. They're not your friends.
There's a few hardcore guys, in my opinion, that will never cooperate.
There are. They're few and far between. And, you know, it's called a system of justice. And in many ways, not to sound corny about it, but the United States does have the best criminal justice system in the world, hands down. That's the good news. The bad news is when you look at the statistics, the federal government wins either at a trial or by a guilty plea 93% of the time.
Wow.
So if you're the average guy getting indicted, you have a 7% chance of going to trial and winning. I mean, who the hell would roll the dice? It's overwhelming. You're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You're trying to stop a tidal wave with an umbrella. It's damn near mission impossible.
Also, I think that back in the day, there were a lot of murders. It was very, very, very common. You do something wrong, you're getting killed.
Yeah.
Today, you're not going to have that. The reason why is because whoever you go do that murder with, you're going to watch, they're going to cooperate on you. So if you're going to go do a hit, a murder, whack somebody, you better go by yourself. Or you better go with your closest brother that you have.
Sure.
Because even some of these guys, that's their closest friend that they have.
Yes.
Are the ones that are either shooting them in the back or cooperating against.
Well, look, you know, it's a story older than time. When it comes down to you and it comes down to me, chances are I'm picking me. And that's just how life is.
And your honesty is appreciated. I'll make sure I watch my back when I walk out that door.
And I'll make sure I'll do nothing illegal with you.
And if I get in trouble, I'm pulling you up.
Be my pleasure.
I think that
How's the food?
delicious.
I'm glad you like it.
I love it. We come here all the time. That's why I really wanted to do a segment here, because I felt that
Meatball, the cheese,
everything is delicious here.
good semolina bread.
I just felt like back in the day when I was growing up, everybody, like all the mob guys, would hang out in cafes. And that's where all the criminal talk takes place, because they're talking amongst each other. Anything goes in cafe talk. So now
Well, used to.
yeah,
I'm
now.
not getting fresh.
No.
I'm just feeling for a microphone to make sure we're okay.
Yeah, be careful.
So
There's a
now,
lot of microphones around here.
not only are we cafe, or we have the food, we're sitting, we're eating, we're talking, and enjoying.
One thing about Italians, and we can all verify this, we love our food, and we particularly are very picky, and we love good food.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, there's only one thing to talk about when you're done lunch. You know what that is? Dinner. Because you just go from one meal to the next.
oh yeah, that's
That's
it.
what life is.
That's it.
That's what life is. I mean, Sundays are the best. You can't beat Sundays, all the families together. You got the pasta, ravioli, the meat.
Some meatballs in the sauce.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
And that's why I wanted to give the viewers an idea of what really goes on. cafe, they eat, they drink their cappuccino,
They play cards.
they play cards, you know, they talk about who's getting killed, who's not getting killed.
All this talk, you're paying for the cigarette. Jesus Christ.
No more smoking for you.
I heard it's done your go.
But, so anyway, Lou, getting back to Steve, he chose not to go to trial?
He did. He made the reason for family decisions. He made the reason that he wanted to be away from his family for the shortest possible time.
Okay.
And that's what he did. That's what he did. He made a man's man decision.
And now 5 years federal?
It's 5 years federal, but fortunately, this past November, the federal sentencing guidelines have been revised. And you now get more days good credit than you did prior to November of 2023. And while I certainly do not have a horse in the presidential race, you can't argue with facts. There's one particular candidate back in the 1990s who was responsible for writing a lot of anti-crime legislation that basically made the federal prison population triple, especially to a whole generation of young black guys. And there's another candidate in the race who I also will keep nameless, but that individual passed a lot of sentencing reform. They passed the First Step Act. They passed the Compassionate Release Act. It is decreasing the federal prison population for all the right reasons. How many people do you think, not state, not locally, how many people right now do you think are incarcerated in the federal system? Because I had no idea, too many to right answer. 150,000 people are incarcerated just in the federal system. Now, you take that number, by definition, everybody has what? A mother and a father, right? And probably siblings, and possibly a spouse, and possibly children. So the ripple effect of what's happening to a family dynamic, to a household with that many people behind bars. I mean, there are so many studies out there. The life expectancy of an individual who has a loved one incarcerated is 24 months lower than people who don't have loved ones behind bars. Well, from stress. You got to travel across the country. You're seeing someone you love, not having sunlight, losing weight, losing muscle mass, becoming physically depressed, eating that prison slop, and you see somebody deteriorate that you love in front of your eyes. Yeah, you're going to go home thinking, this is friggin' horrible.
But what's the answer at the end of the day? You can't let criminals run around on the streets.
No,
so we need prison reform.
We need prison reform, but here's the answer. And God rest his soul, a dear friend of mine who was a very experienced trial judge who recently passed, he told me something from when I was a young lawyer that I remember to this day. He said, when I see someone in front of me and I have to impose a sentence on them, he said, I want to ask myself, what is 8 years behind bars going to teach them that 3 or 4 years won't? And if I could send the same message to that person with a lower sentence, why the hell am I making society pay for that additional time? Why am I going to make that person have the opportunity to maybe get his master's degree in crime, or God forbid get physically hurt in jail? So, impose the lowest possible sentence to send a message, then bring the guy home, rehabilitate him. I mean,
but that's the answer, is rehabilitation and true reform. Because you can't just bring a guy home that's going to go out and sell cocaine again, sell heroin again, kill somebody else.
But here's the problem. I come home a convicted felon. Okay? I can't be a meter maid on the street right now. I can't get a barber's license.
That's the problem.
Who the hell is hiring me? So what am I going to do? Hey, Jimmy, remember we were here at so-and-so? What are you doing? I got this going on. Okay, well, you need a hand? Next thing you know, you're a wheelman or a bag man, or you're doing some bullshit. Your parole officer catches you, and you're back in front of a judge.
That's why, what is it, recidivism is so high, because you have that felony, which that's that big blemish, and nobody's hiring you. They don't want you.
And it's worse than that. I mean, listen, I've been away, okay? I've lived in a cell. I've taken classes in jail. I've paid my debt to society, right? Let me vote when I come home. I mean, why do I have that scarlet letter for the rest of my life? If I'm home and I walk off several years of good behavior, clean my record. I've earned it. You want me to be productive, but you're not giving me the tools to be productive.
I agree. I would rather see more money go into reform, education, particularly with these young guys mainly with these young guys from the inner city, because I see big problems when you get into the inner cities where there's a tremendous lack of education, there's a tremendous lack of work ethic. I see it in my own business,
Sure.
in my own company. When you get these kids that come from the inner city, regardless of race or color, the inner city, there's a mindset of, it's not the same as if you live in a nice neighborhood where you got to work hard to keep up with the Joneses. In the inner city, when you got guys hanging out on street corners, that's what these other young kids are aspiring to do, is
Sure.
be like these other
Look,
guys
if you're-
drinking a 40 on the street corner.
If you're some kind of off the street animal, some violent person, sadly a small percentage of our population is, they need to be warehoused.
Yes.
But the overwhelming majority do not need to be warehoused. You need to make societal changes as well. You know, if you're a mom bringing an infant and then a toddler and then a teenager to see your family in jail all the time, well, what the hell is that kid going to think? This is my norm, and someday I'm going to be there getting visits as well. You have to break that cycle by bringing that guy home, bringing that woman home, saying, look, here's your chance, don't screw it up. Here's your job, you can go and vote, you can be on a jury now, and become productive.
So there's individuals that I've wanted to hire at different times throughout the years where I work for big companies sometimes, and I have to get guys pre-background checked to work in certain environments. One of which was literally empty houses. So it was for a big company, for a national company, but the guys had to be pre-screened and pre-background checked, and they would come out and check to see if guys have badges to work in these homes. And I would have to sometimes sneak guys in to work in empty houses. I have one particular individual who was a good guy. He had crimes on him from like maybe the 1980s. And he might have had some violent crimes, felony, but this is not the same guy
No, of course not.
that he was when he was in the 1980s doing whatever he did back then. But I could not get this guy approved to work on this particular contract. He was not approved. He was denied, even though he had something from the 1980s.
It's just a liability.
Denied in an empty home. These houses were empty. They were not
It
living.
doesn't matter. An insurance company is going to look at it and say, this guy by definition is a risk because of something he did 40 years ago. Who's the hard to be judged about every day in their life 40 years ago? I know I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else who does. Maybe your mother. She's a saint. But aside from that,
All right, guys, so we are going to close out and eat this delicious food.
Absolutely.
Because it's too tempting.
I'm looking at it too long.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I always continue to thank all of my subscribers, continue to comment. Thank you, Jesus, for giving me this platform, and we'll see you next time.